My name is Chloe Reed. In my father's world, marriage isn't a vow, it's a business merger. So when I fell in love with Liam, a proud kid from the South Side, my father didn't greet him with a hug but with a contract. An agreement designed not to protect but to chain him. To turn him into a puppet, stripping him of everything he owned and everything he would ever earn. But Liam did what no one had ever dared to do. He threw it back in my father's face. And that's when the war began. My father smeared his name in the press, sent thugs to threaten his family, and did everything to crush his career before it could even start. They thought I was just their weak little princess, trembling in a corner. But they made a fatal mistake. While they focused all their power on destroying the man I love, I was quietly copying every piece of evidence, every dirty deal that built their empire. My father thought his enemy was a poor kid with nothing to his name. He had no idea the person about to burn his empire to the ground was the one daughter he always underestimated. I grew up in the South Side of Chicago, in a housing project where gunshots were more common than lullabies. My mom Alina raised me and my little brother Marcus pretty much on her own. She worked double shifts at a diner and still came home with just enough to cover rent and a bag of groceries that never seemed to stretch through the week. I used to watch her peel off her shoes after 12 hours on her feet, the soles worn down, her hands smelling like coffee and grease. She would smile at us though, always smile, as if she could hide the weight crushing her shoulders. My dad was gone before I could even remember what his voice sounded like. He left when I was 4, and all I had was one faded picture of him, standing with a cigarette dangling from his lips, and a look in his eyes that said he had already checked out of our lives. I do not blame him anymore. Maybe he was scared, maybe he was weak. Either way, it was my mom who stayed and fought for us. She was both parents rolled into one, tough enough to keep us in line, but soft enough to still tell us she loved us every night, no matter how bad the day had been. Marcus was my shadow. He was 5 years younger and followed me everywhere. I remember dribbling a half-flat ball in the cracked courtyard behind our building and Marcus chasing after it barefoot, yelling at me to teach him the moves he saw on TV. He had asthma and would start wheezing after 5 minutes, but he never stopped trying. Every time I looked at him, I knew I had to make it. I had to find a way out, not just for me, but for him too. The neighborhood taught me things no textbook ever could. I learned how to keep my head down when fights broke out on the block. I learned how to run fast when sirens wailed and cops swarmed the corners. I learned that trust was a fragile thing, and sometimes the people you thought were friends would sell you out for $20. But I also learned resilience. I learned how to keep pushing even when the odds were stacked against you. Basketball became my refuge. Every time I stepped onto the court at the community center, it felt like the world outside disappeared. Coach Carter was the first person outside my family who believed in me. He was an old guy with a raspy voice from smoking too many cigars, but his eyes lit up when he saw me play. One night after practice, he pulled me aside and said, "Liam, you have something special. Not just talent, but fire. Do not waste it." Those words stuck with me. He started driving me to tournaments, paying out of his own pocket sometimes because he knew my mom could not. He became the father figure I had lost, the one who told me the truth even when it hurt. High school was rough. My grades were decent because mom made sure I did my homework before I touched a ball, but the streets tried to pull me in every day. Some of my boys ended up in gangs. Others got locked up before they even turned 18. A few never made it past junior year. I still remember going to the funeral of my friend Deshaun who got caught in the crossfire of something he was not even part of. That was the day I promised myself I would not end up another statistic. I would play my way out. Scouts started noticing me my junior year. I was 6'5" already and still growing. I could dunk, shoot, and run the floor like it was built for me. College letters started showing up, thick envelopes with promises of scholarships and dreams. I remember laying them out on the kitchen table, mom staring at them with tears in her eyes, Marcus picking up each one like it was made of gold. For the first time, it felt like the world was opening a door instead of slamming it shut. But success came with its own pressures. People in the neighborhood started looking at me differently. Some cheered me on, others whispered that I thought I was better than them. Girls who never noticed me before suddenly wanted to hang around. Guys who never talked to me suddenly called me brother. I had to learn fast who was real and who was just chasing the glow. Mom sat me down one night and said, "Liam, listen to me. Talent can take you far, but character is what keeps you there. Do not let this game change who you are." I nodded, but inside I knew the game was already changing everything. It was not just a ball and a hoop anymore. It was a ticket. It was the lifeline we had been waiting for. When I got the scholarship offer from Duke, it felt unreal. Me, the kid from Southside Projects, going to one of the top programs in the country. I hugged Marcus so hard he could barely breathe. Mom cried like the weight of all those years finally broke. That night I promised them both that I would not waste this chance. I would fight, grind, bleed if I had to, because this was bigger than me. College was a whole different world. The campus was like something out of a movie: clean buildings, students walking around with expensive headphones and cars I had only seen in magazines. At first, I felt like an intruder, like everyone knew I did not belong. But the moment I stepped on the court, all that disappeared. Basketball was the one place where class, money, background did not matter. If you could play, you belonged. And I could play. The first season was tough. I was a freshman surrounded by older guys, some already on NBA radars. I had to fight for minutes, fight for respect. Coach Carter had warned me it would be like that. He said the court is just another kind of street, Liam. You have to earn your corner, so I hustled. I dove for loose balls, I played defense like my life depended on it, and when the moment came, I hit shots that made people sit up. Slowly the minutes grew, the cheers got louder, and the scouts started writing my name in bold. Marcus called me after every game. He would say, "Bro, you looked like Jordan out there, or you gotta work on those free throws." His voice reminded me why I was doing this. It was not about fame or girls or the shiny NBA logo. It was about building a life where Mom did not have to break her back at a diner and Marcus could go to college without worrying about money. I will never forget the night I realized the NBA was not just a dream anymore. It was during my sophomore year tournament game, packed arena, lights so bright they felt like daylight. I dropped 30 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. When the buzzer sounded, I looked over and saw 3 NBA scouts scribbling furiously. That was the moment I knew. The league was coming, but with that realization came fear too. I had seen stories of kids like me who made it to the league and lost everything. Bad contracts, fake friends, shady deals. I did not want to be one of them. I needed to be smarter. I needed to be ready not just to play the game, but to play the system. Mom told me one evening on the phone, "Liam, you're carrying all of us on your shoulders. But remember to carry yourself too. Do not lose who you are." I promised her I would not. Still, I could feel the weight pressing down, the expectations, the hunger from everyone who wanted a piece of me. And then, just as my junior year was ending and the NBA draft rumors were swirling, I met Chloe Reed. She was standing at a charity gala in a long red dress, smiling at kids from a foundation she had helped sponsor. She looked like she belonged to another universe, one filled with wealth and power. I remember thinking right then that my life was about to get even more complicated. But before I tell you about Chloe, you have to understand me. I was not some fairy tale prince. I was a kid from the projects with a ball, a dream, and a family I could not let down. That was the beginning of everything. When I look back at those first months in college, I realize how close I was to losing myself. Everything felt bigger than me. The stadiums, the cameras, the hype around every game. At first, it was overwhelming. I was the kid from Southside Projects, suddenly eating at dining halls with chandeliers and sleeping in dorms that felt like hotel suites compared to the apartment back home. I remember the first time I walked into the Duke locker room. Jerseys lined up crisp and fresh, lockers with nameplates shining like little golden plaques. My hands shook as I touched the one with Walker printed across it. I thought about all the nights I had taped the soles of my sneakers because they were falling apart, and here I was now with a stack of brand new pairs waiting for me. The older players gave me the rookie treatment. They made me carry the gear bags, they laughed when I missed a defensive rotation, they told me I had to earn every second on that court. At first, it pissed me off. I wanted to prove myself immediately, but Coach reminded me that respect is not given in a locker room like that. He said, "Liam, basketball will humble you if you try to skip steps. Trust the grind." So I trusted it. I ran suicides until my legs burned. I stayed after practice hitting free throws until the janitors turned off the lights. Slowly, the minutes started to come. I will never forget the first time the crowd chanted my name. It was against Kentucky, the game was tight, and Coach put me in late. I hit a 3 from the corner and the whole arena erupted. For a second, I forgot to run back on defense. That sound, that roar, it was like nothing I had ever felt. My mom flew down for one game that first year. She sat way up in the cheap seats, but I spotted her immediately. After the game, she hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. She whispered, "You are living the dream, baby. Do not let anyone take it from you." Those words became my shield every time doubt tried to creep in. Marcus kept calling me after every game too. Sometimes he would just scream down the phone like he was my personal hype man. Other times he would be serious, telling me to keep my head straight, reminding me that our neighborhood was watching, that the kids back home needed someone to believe in. He was only 17, but sometimes he sounded older than me. By sophomore year, things were different. Reporters started asking me about the NBA. Articles popped up with my name in bold letters, mock drafts predicting I would go in the first round. I tried to stay cool, but inside I was buzzing. The league was not just a dream anymore. It was a real possibility, and that scared me as much as it excited me. Coach sat me down one afternoon after practice. His office smelled like leather and old coffee. He leaned back in his chair, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Liam, you are going to have to make some big decisions soon. The NBA is not just about talent. It is about business, money, lawyers, contracts. If you are not careful, they will eat you alive." I nodded, but I did not fully understand then. All I knew was that scouts kept showing up, and my phone started blowing up with numbers I did not recognize. People suddenly wanted to be my friend. I got messages from agents promising me the world. Every day was a new temptation. One night I was walking back to my dorm when a slick guy in a suit stopped me. He handed me a card and said, "I represent players like you. I can get you a shoe deal before you even declare for the draft." I took the card, but something about the way he smiled made my stomach turn. I tossed it in the trash before I even got to my room. I told Mom about it on the phone, and she said, "Baby, remember this. If something looks too good to be true, it probably is. Keep your circle small. Trust the people who were with you before the cameras showed up." I promised her I would. Despite the distractions, the season was electric. I was averaging 20 points a game, playing like I was born for that spotlight. After one big win, a reporter asked me how I stayed grounded. I just laughed and said, "Try growing up in the South Side with your mom working 2 jobs. That will keep you humble real quick." The quote ended up in the paper, and kids from back home texted me saying they felt seen. That meant more to me than any headline about the draft. The more success I had, the more I felt the pressure. Before every game, I would sit in the locker room with my head in my hands and think about Marcus. I thought about him sitting in that old apartment, watching me on TV, telling his friends that was his brother out there. I thought about Mom working the late shift, sneaking a radio into the kitchen to listen to my games. I knew I was carrying them with me. Every shot, every rebound, it was for them. There were nights I could not sleep, though. Nights where I wondered if I was ready. What if I blew out my knee before the draft? What if I made it to the league and became one of those sad stories on ESPN, broke within 5 years? Those fears kept me up, but they also kept me grinding. One night after a tough game, I stayed in the gym shooting long after everyone left. I was drenched in sweat when Coach Carter walked in. He just stood there for a minute watching me. Then he said, "Liam, you got the skills. What you need now is wisdom. The NBA will offer you millions, but every dollar comes with a string attached. You better learn how to cut the ones that choke you and hold on to the ones that keep you standing." I did not know then how true those words would become. Because not long after that, I met Chloe Reed, and she would turn my entire world upside down. It was at a charity gala for education programs. My school made me go because the team had donated some equipment and they wanted players to show face. I hated those events. Everyone in suits sipping wine and pretending to care about causes they barely understood. I was standing by the buffet, starving, when I saw her. She was talking to a group of kids from the program, kneeling down so she was eye level with them. Her dress was expensive, no doubt about it, but she looked comfortable, like she belonged with them. Her smile was soft, her laugh real, not like the fake ones I had been hearing all night. For a moment I just stared. Then she looked up and our eyes met. And just like that, the noise of the gala disappeared. She walked over and said, "You play for Duke, right?" I nodded, suddenly forgetting how to speak. She held out her hand. "I am Chloe." I shook it, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was meeting someone who saw me, not just the jersey or the hype. We ended up talking the whole night. About school, about books, about the city. I told her about my mom and Marcus. She told me about growing up in a world of wealth that sounded like another planet compared to mine. At one point I joked, "So you are the princess and I am the kid from the hood." She laughed, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of sadness, like her life was not as perfect as it looked. When I left that gala, I knew 2 things. 1, I was falling for Chloe Reed. And 2, nothing in my life would ever be simple again. When I tell people about the first time I saw Chloe Reed, they think I am exaggerating. They imagine I am spinning some fairy tale story because it sounds too perfect. But I swear on everything, that night at the gala was real. The way she carried herself, the way her smile seemed like it belonged to a different world, it was enough to make a kid like me forget the noise of the room. After that night, we started texting. At first it was casual, just short messages about school or the city. But then it turned into late-night conversations that stretched until sunrise. She told me about her classes in economics and art history. I told her about the grind of practice and the pressure of balancing books and basketball. She said she liked my honesty, that I was not like the guys she usually met. I laughed and said that was probably because I could not afford to lie. One of our first real dates was not what anyone would have expected. She suggested meeting at a little diner off campus. When I got there, she was already sitting in a booth, no makeup, hair tied back, wearing a hoodie that looked like it had been borrowed from a friend. I slid into the seat across from her and said, "So the princess does eat pancakes like the rest of us." She smirked, "Only when they come with extra syrup." Then she leaned forward. "I wanted to see you somewhere real. No gala lights, no cameras, just you." That hit me hard because most people wanted the opposite. They wanted the version of me that was shiny under the arena lights, not the one who still carried scars from the projects. I told her, "You are full of surprises, Chloe." And she shot back, "You have no idea." As weeks turned into months, we grew close. I would sneak away after practice just to see her. Sometimes we would walk around campus holding hands, sometimes we would drive out of the city and sit by the water in silence. She had this way of making me feel like the world was not spinning so fast, but there was always a shadow. She never talked much about her family. Whenever I asked, she would dodge the subject. One night I pushed a little harder. I said, "Chloe, you know everything about my mom and Marcus, but all I know about your family is their last name. What are you hiding?" She looked away, her fingers tracing circles on her coffee cup. "My family is complicated, Liam. Everyone's family is complicated. Try me." She sighed and finally met my eyes. My father, Alexander Reed, runs one of the biggest real estate corporations in the country. He is powerful, respected, feared even. My mother, Veronica, is the face behind the charity events and the press releases. Together, they control more money than I can even explain. I whistled low. "So you're telling me you really are a princess?" She did not smile. "It is not like that. My dad sees everything as a deal, every person as a pawn. My mom is worse in some ways. She knows how to smile while twisting the knife." That was the first time I saw pain in her eyes. I reached across the table and held her hand. "You are not them, Chloe." She squeezed back, whispering, "I hope you are right." It was not long before I realized how serious we were getting. After a big game one night, she was waiting for me outside the locker room. I was sweaty, tired, but seeing her there lit me up more than the wind did. She threw her arms around me and said, "I am proud of you." I laughed and said, "You should be. I just carried this team on my back." She rolled her eyes but kissed me anyway. The more time we spent together, the more I wanted her to meet my family. I told her about Mom working endless hours and Marcus grinding through high school. She said she wanted to meet them, that she wanted to see the world I came from. So one weekend I brought her home to Chicago. I was nervous as hell. Our apartment was small, the paint peeling, the hallway smelling like fried food and cigarettes. But Chloe walked in like it was the most natural thing in the world. She hugged Mom, helped her set the table, even listened to Marcus go on about his favorite video game for 20 minutes straight. Later that night, Mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. She whispered, "She is different, Liam. She sees you. Do not let her slip away." Hearing that from Mom meant everything, but meeting her family was a whole different story. Chloe warned me it would not be easy. She said her father was controlling, her mother judgmental. I told her I could handle it. I had faced worse. I was wrong. The first dinner at the Reed Mansion felt like stepping into another universe. The driveway was lined with luxury cars, the house lit up like a palace. Inside, everything gleamed. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that looked like it belonged in a museum. I felt like I should have taken my shoes off at the door. Alexander Reed walked in wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than my mom made in a year. He shook my hand firmly, his eyes sharp, sizing me up like I was a business deal. "So you are the basketball player?" "Yes, sir," I said. He smirked. "Enjoy it while it lasts. Careers end quickly." Veronica Reed entered a moment later, stunning in a silk dress, her smile warm but her eyes cold. She kissed Chloe on the cheek, then turned to me. "So this is the young man? I expected someone taller." I forced a polite smile while Chloe shot her mother a look. Dinner was tense. Alexander asked about my scholarship, my future, my finances. Veronica asked about my parents in a tone that made me feel small. At one point, Alexander leaned back and said, Chloe has been raised with certain expectations. I hope you understand what it means to join this family. I set my fork down and looked him straight in the eye. With respect, sir, I am not here to join your family. I am here because I love your daughter. The table went silent. Alexander's jaw tightened, Veronica's smile froze. Chloe reached under the table and squeezed my hand. Afterward, as we drove back, Chloe apologized. I am so sorry, Liam, they are impossible. I shook my head. They do not scare me, but I can see why you keep your distance. She leaned against my shoulder. I do not want to be like them. I want a different life. That was when I realized Chloe was not just beautiful or smart. She was strong in a way I had not understood before. She was fighting battles of her own, battles that money could not shield her from. Still, I knew her family was going to be a problem. And I was right. Because the deeper Chloe and I fell for each other, the more her parents started watching me like a hawk. I always thought the hardest battles I would fight were on the court. I thought it would be the guy guarding me, the roar of the crowd, the scoreboard ticking down. But the more time I spent around Chloe's family, the more I realized that some battles were fought in silence, behind glass walls and expensive suits, and those were the ones that could destroy you without ever throwing a punch. After that first dinner at the Reed Mansion, I could feel the chill every time I walked through their doors. Alexander Reed, Chloe's father, had this way of making me feel small without saying much. He would glance at my sneakers like they did not belong on his marble floors. He would ask me about my backup plan like my whole life was built on a shaky dream. Veronica, Chloe's mom, was different. She smiled, laughed at my jokes, even complimented my game. But behind her eyes there was something sharp. I could feel her measuring me, deciding how much of me she could control. One evening, Chloe invited me to another family dinner, insisting it would be different. I wanted to believe her. When we arrived, Alexander was already seated in the massive dining room, the kind of room that felt like it belonged in a movie. He did not stand to greet me. He just said, "Sit." I took the chair across from him, Chloe next to me. Veronica poured wine into crystal glasses and said with that perfect smile, "Liam, we have been thinking about your future." I raised an eyebrow. My future? Alexander leaned forward, his voice low and steady. You are about to enter the NBA draft, yes. Millions of dollars are at stake. Endorsements, sponsorships, contracts. Do you know how quickly young men from your background lose everything? I clenched my jaw. I know the stories. Then you know why Chloe's mother and I must be involved. We protect our family always. If you intend to marry Chloe one day, you will be part of this family. And that means following certain rules. Chloe's fork clattered against her plate. Dad, stop. Veronica's voice was calm, almost soothing. Sweetheart, it is not an attack, it is guidance. Liam needs guidance. I looked from one to the other. With respect, I have people I trust for that. Alexander's eyes narrowed. People? What people? I thought of Coach Carter, of my mom, even of Robert Hale, the former lawyer Chloe had once mentioned. But I kept my mouth shut. Alexander leaned back. Let me be clear, Liam. If you want a future with my daughter, you will not just be a basketball player, you will represent the Reed name. And that name does not tolerate weakness. The air in the room turned heavy. Chloe pushed her chair back. I am not some deal to be negotiated, Dad. Veronica touched her arm gently. Chloe, darling, this is about security. Marriage in families like ours has always been about security. Chloe's voice cracked with anger. Maybe I do not want a marriage like yours. The silence that followed was suffocating. Alexander's face hardened, and he finally said enough. On the ride home, Chloe was quiet. I reached for her hand. You okay? She nodded, but her eyes were distant. This is why I never bring anyone home. They do not care about love, Liam. They care about control. I squeezed her hand tighter. Then we will fight for us. Over the next weeks, I started noticing things. Chloe would get calls late at night, her face turning pale before she hung up. When I asked, she brushed it off, but I knew it was her father. I saw the way she flinched whenever Veronica brought up expectations. One night after practice, I found Chloe waiting for me outside the gym. Her eyes were red like she had been crying. What happened? I asked. She took a shaky breath. My father wants me to marry someone from one of his business partners' families. He says it is the only way to keep their empire strong. I stared at her. And what did you say? She looked straight at me. I told him I love you. For a moment, I could not breathe. Then I pulled her close and whispered, then nothing else matters. But deep down, I knew everything else did matter. Her father was not a man who lost. He was used to getting his way. And if he saw me as a threat, he would do whatever it took to remove me. A week later, I got a call from a number I did not recognize. When I answered, a cold voice said, Mr. Walker, this is Samuel Price. I represent the Reed family. They would like to discuss a prenuptial agreement. I froze. A prenup? Yes, he said smoothly. Standard procedure. It protects family assets. We can meet tomorrow to review the details. I hung up without answering. My chest burned with anger. I had not even proposed yet, but they were already drawing up contracts to keep me out. That night I told Chloe. She cursed under her breath, of course. My father has probably had that paperwork ready since the day we met. I paced the room. They do not even see me as a person, just some outsider trying to take their money. Chloe grabbed my hands. Listen to me. You are more than they will ever understand. Do not let them break you. Her words steadied me, but the truth was clear. Alexander and Veronica were not just parents. They were strategists, playing a game I had barely begun to understand. Behind the glamour, behind the mansions and the polite smiles, there was darkness. A darkness that would do anything to protect its empire. And if I wanted a life with Chloe, I was going to have to step into that darkness and fight. When I finally decided I was going to ask Chloe to marry me, I carried that secret around like it was the heaviest weight in the world. I hid the little velvet box in my gym bag, tucked between an old pair of sneakers and some worn socks, because I knew nobody would ever look there. Every practice, every bus ride, that box was with me, and every time I touched it, I felt both nervous and certain. Nervous because I was just a kid from South Side projects about to tie my life to a woman whose family basically owned half of downtown Chicago. Certain because I knew, deep down, Chloe was it. She was the one. I worked extra hours at the campus bookstore and did a few paid appearances for local basketball clinics just to save enough to buy the ring. It was not flashy compared to the diamonds her friends wore, but it was beautiful, simple, and honest. I wanted her to look at it and think of me, not of her father's money. The night I proposed, I took her down to the waterfront. The city skyline stretched across the horizon, lights sparkling like they were celebrating with me. We walked hand in hand, laughing about some silly thing Marcus had texted me earlier. My palms were sweating so badly I almost dropped the ring box when I pulled it out. I stopped, took a deep breath, and dropped to one knee. Chloe's eyes went wide. Liam, what are you doing? I opened the box with shaking hands. Chloe Reed, you changed everything for me. You've shown me what love really feels like. I don't care about your family's money or their empire. I care about you. Will you marry me? For a second, her face froze like she was trying to process the words. Then her hand flew to her mouth, her eyes filled with tears, and she whispered, yes, yes, of course, yes. She threw her arms around me so hard I almost fell over. I slipped the ring on her finger and she kept staring at it, smiling through tears. It's perfect, she said softly. It's us. I thought about that night for days afterward. I thought about how she looked at me like I was the only man in the world. I thought about how, for once, I felt like I had won a game I could never lose. For a short while, I let myself believe that was how things would stay. But the truth is, nothing in Chloe's world came without strings. About a week later, she invited me to dinner at her parents' house. She sounded excited on the phone, said they wanted to celebrate our engagement, that maybe things would be different now. I wanted to believe her, so I put on my best suit, polished the only decent pair of shoes I owned, and tried to walk into that mansion with confidence. The Reed estate was glowing that night. Chandeliers lit the entryway, staff moved around quietly, and the dining table stretched so long it looked like it could seat a basketball team. Alexander sat at the head of the table, his expression sharp and unreadable. Veronica stood beside him, smiling like she was posing for a magazine cover. Congratulations, Alexander said flatly when we entered. Thank you, sir, I replied, shaking his hand, though he barely gripped mine back. We sat down, Chloe beside me. For a few minutes it was polite small talk, Veronica asking about classes, Alexander commenting on the upcoming draft. Then, without warning, Alexander reached into a leather folder by his chair and slid a thick envelope across the table toward me. I frowned. What's this? Veronica's smile widened. A prenuptial agreement, Liam, standard procedure in families like ours. My stomach tightened. I glanced at Chloe. She looked like she might explode. Dad, Mom, not tonight, she snapped. This is supposed to be about us, about celebrating. Alexander's voice was calm but like steel. This cannot wait. If you're serious about marrying into this family, then you will understand why we must protect what we've built. I opened the envelope and pulled out the document. The paper was thick, the kind that probably cost more than my mom's rent. I skimmed the first few pages, my chest growing tighter with every line. It said that if Chloe and I divorced, I would walk away with nothing. Not just nothing from their fortune, nothing from my own earnings either. Even future income from the NBA could be controlled, depending on how they argued it. There were even clauses about intellectual property, as if they were already planning to lay claim to anything I might build outside basketball. I looked up, my hands shaking. This is ridiculous. Alexander folded his hands on the table. It is protection. You come from nothing, Liam. Men like you often get distracted by money, by fame. We cannot risk that. If you truly love Chloe, you will have no problem signing. With respect, sir, I said slowly, I'm not after your money, I never was. He smirked, his eyes cold. That's what they all say. Chloe slammed her hand against the table, the sound echoing through the room. Enough, this is insane. Liam is not signing this. Veronica finally spoke, her tone sweet but laced with venom. Darling, you don't understand. This isn't about Liam personally. It's about preserving family legacy. Surely you can see that. Chloe shot her a glare. No, what I see is you treating the man I love like a thief. Alexander's jaw tightened. Chloe, you will not speak to us like that. This is not negotiable. Either he signs or there is no marriage. The words hit like a punch to the chest. I set the document down carefully, forcing myself not to rip it in half. With respect, Mr. Reed, I said, my voice low, if my marriage to Chloe depends on me signing away my life, then maybe you never wanted me in this family at all. The room went silent. Veronica's smile vanished, her eyes like ice. Alexander's stare drilled into me. I could feel the weight of their empire pressing against me, daring me to fold. Chloe grabbed my hand under the table, squeezing it so tight it hurt. We're done here, she said firmly. She stood, pulling me up with her, and without another word we walked out. In the car, Chloe was trembling. I'm so sorry, Liam. I should have known they'd try something like this. They're not going to stop. They think they can control us the same way they control everyone else. I pulled over, turned to her, and cupped her face in my hands. Listen to me. I'm not marrying your parents. I'm marrying you. And I'm not going to let them chain me with a contract that treats me like dirt. We'll figure this out. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't want to lose you. You won't, I promised, pulling her into my chest. But even as I held her, I knew this was only the beginning. Alexander and Veronica Reed weren't going to back down. They would throw everything they had at me. And if I wanted to survive, I couldn't just play defense. I needed a game plan. That night, when Chloe was asleep, I stepped out onto the balcony of my apartment and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. The line clicked and a rough voice answered. Robert Hale, he said. Mr. Hale, it's Liam Walker. There was a pause, then a chuckle. The kid everyone's talking about, what can I do for you? I took a deep breath. I need help. Chloe's family is trying to trap me in a prenup that would strip me of everything. I don't know what to do, but I know I can't fight them alone. He was silent for a moment, then his voice came back, low and steady. Son, if you think the NBA is a jungle, you haven't seen anything yet. The Reeds play dirtier than any team owner I've ever met. But if you're serious, if you're ready to fight, I'll teach you how to beat them at their own game. I'm serious, I said without hesitation. Good, he replied. Because the first rule of surviving people like the Reeds is this: you don't let them write the rules, you write your own. And just like that, the trap they set for me became the first step in a plan they never saw coming. When Robert Hale agreed to meet me, I didn't know what to expect. I had heard stories about him from older players and even from Coach Carter. They said he was one of the best sports lawyers in the business back in the day, a guy who knew every trick in every contract. But they also said he got burned, that he went head-to-head with powerful families and corporations and lost everything. Some called him bitter. Others called him dangerous. All I knew was that I needed someone who wasn't afraid of the Reeds, and Robert Hale sounded like the only person who fit that description. We met in a little coffee shop on the south side of town, the kind of place with chipped tables and a bell on the door that jingled every time someone came in. When I walked in, he was already there, sitting in the corner, a cup of black coffee in front of him. He was older than I expected, late 50s maybe, with gray hair slicked back and a suit that had seen better days. But his eyes were sharp, cold even, like he could see straight through me. You're taller in person, he said as I sat down. I smiled nervously. I get that a lot. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. So the great Liam Walker needs my help. What's the problem? I pulled the prenup document from my bag and slid it across the table. This. Chloe's parents want me to sign it before we get married. It's brutal. I'd walk away with nothing, not even my own earnings. He flipped through the pages, nodding slowly. Classic Reed move. I've seen worse, but not by much. They're not trying to protect assets. They're trying to control you, to remind you that you'll never really belong. My jaw tightened. I'm not signing it, but I also don't want to lose Chloe. Robert set the papers down and looked me dead in the eye. Son, let me give you some advice. In this world, love is real, but money talks louder. The Reeds don't care about your heart, they care about power. And if you want to stand a chance against them, you need power too, not on the court but on paper, in contracts, in bank accounts, in moves they don't see coming. I leaned forward. So what do I do? He smirked, like he had been waiting for me to ask that. First, you protect yourself. Before you ever sign an NBA contract, you set up a trust. All your earnings, endorsements, bonuses, they go straight into it. A trust is untouchable if it's structured right. Even the Reeds can't claw their way into it. I blinked. A trust, like rich people stuff? Robert chuckled. Exactly. You think the Reeds are the only ones who know how to play this game? No, the difference is they don't expect you to know it too. That's your advantage. I sat back, letting it sink in. So you're saying I put everything in the trust, then sign the prenup? They can't touch it. Not a dime, he said firmly. They'll think they've boxed you in, but really, you'll already have the keys to the vault. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. That's genius. Robert pointed a finger at me. Don't get cocky. This is just step one. The Reeds are dangerous, Liam. They've ruined men stronger than you. If you want to win, you have to be 2 steps ahead at all times. You have to let them think they're in control while quietly taking control back. I nodded slowly. I can do that. He gave me a long look, then leaned in. Can you? Because once you start this game, there's no going back. You'll have to lie to them, maybe even lie to Chloe, at least for a while. You'll have to carry secrets heavier than any weight you've ever lifted. And if you slip, if you let your guard down for even a second, they'll bury you. The words hit hard, but I didn't flinch. I don't care. I'm not going to let them take me down. I've fought my whole life to get here. I'm not losing now. Robert cracked the faintest smile. Good, you've got fire. That's what I like. Now let's get to work. We spent hours at that table, going through every line of the prenup, Robert explaining loopholes and traps I never would have noticed. He scribbled notes on napkins, drew diagrams of trust structures, explained the difference between revocable and irrevocable trusts like he was teaching a class. I soaked it all in, hungry to learn. At one point I asked, "Why are you helping me?" "You don't even know me." His face darkened, his voice dropping. "Because I know them. Years ago, I represented a player who got involved with the Reeds. Bright kid, full of promise. They chewed him up and spit him out. He lost everything, his career, his money, his family. And when I tried to fight back, they destroyed me too. Took my firm, ruined my reputation. I've been waiting a long time for a chance to hit back." I swallowed hard. "So I'm your chance?" He looked at me steadily. "No, son. You're your own chance, but if I can help you take them down, maybe I'll sleep a little better at night." We shook hands before I left. His grip was strong, steady. For the first time since Alexander slid that envelope across the table, I felt like I wasn't walking into this fight alone. When I got back to my apartment, Chloe was waiting for me. She jumped up as soon as I walked in. "Well, what did he say?" I hesitated. Robert had told me I might need to keep some of this from her, at least for now, but I hated lying to her, so I gave her half the truth. He said your parents' prenup is designed to strip me of everything. He's going to help me fight it. Her face softened with relief. Good, I knew we couldn't let them win. I pulled her into my arms. "We won't, I promise." But as I held her, my mind raced with Robert's words. Secrets, lies, traps. I didn't want any of that between Chloe and me. But if I wanted us to survive, if I wanted a future where I wasn't just her father's pawn, I had to play the game. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just playing basketball. I was playing for everything. The first time Robert explained how the trust would work, I felt like he was teaching me a new language. I had grown up counting every dollar, learning how to stretch $10 into dinner for 3. Words like irrevocable, trustee, and beneficiary sounded like they belonged in another world. But Robert broke it down until even a kid from the South Side could understand. We met in his small office above a laundromat. The place smelled faintly of detergent and coffee, a far cry from the marble and glass towers the Reeds were used to. Robert sat behind a battered desk, stacks of old law books piled around him, his laptop open to a document filled with legal terms. He tapped the screen with a pen. "Here's the deal. We set up an irrevocable trust. That means once you put assets in, nobody touches them. Not you, not me, not the Reeds. It exists on its own. Safe, protected." I rubbed my temples. "So I can't even touch it?" "Not directly," he said. "That's the beauty of it. You'll appoint a trustee, someone you absolutely trust, to manage it. Money goes in, investments grow, and when you need it, the trustee disperses it legally. No one can claim your hiding assets because technically they're no longer yours, they belong to the trust." I sat back, letting that sink in. "And the Reeds, they can't get to it?" Robert's eyes gleamed. They can try, they'll fail. By the time you sign their precious prenup, your real fortune will already be locked away, untouchable. All they'll have is what you let them see. For the first time in weeks, I grinned. Damn, that's slick, Robert smirked. Welcome to their world. The difference is we're playing smarter. Over the next month, Robert walked me through everything. We filed the paperwork, set up shell corporations, created accounts that funneled into the trust. It felt surreal, like I was building a fortress around a fortune I didn't even have yet, but I knew it was coming. The NBA draft was just around the corner, and with it, millions of dollars. One night, as we pored over documents, I asked the question that had been gnawing at me. Who should I make the trustee? Robert leaned back, studying me. Has to be someone loyal, someone who'd take a bullet for you, someone who doesn't scare easy. I thought about it for days. My mom was the obvious choice, but I didn't want to put that burden on her. She had spent her life fighting just to keep us alive. I didn't want her tangled in legal games with the Reeds. Marcus was too young. Coach Carter, maybe, but he already carried enough. Finally, I looked across the table at Robert. What about you? His eyebrows rose. Me? Yeah, I said. You know this stuff better than anyone. You already hate the Reeds, and I trust you. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he nodded slowly. If you're sure, being trustee means I'll have a lot of responsibility over your future. I'm sure, I said firmly. He smiled faintly. All right then, looks like I'm back in the game. That night, walking home, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, secure. For once, I wasn't just reacting to the Reeds' moves. I was making my own, but security came with secrets. Chloe knew I was working with Robert, but she didn't know about the trust. Robert had insisted I keep it quiet. She loves me, I told him one night. Why can't I tell her? Because love doesn't stop her family, Robert said. She might not even mean to, but if she lets something slip, they'll figure it out. And if they do, the whole plan collapses. I hated it. I hated lying to Chloe, hated looking into her eyes and knowing there was something I wasn't telling her. But I also knew Robert was right. The fewer people who knew, the better. Chloe noticed, of course. She was too smart not to. One night, we were curled up on the couch in her apartment, watching a movie when she turned to me and said, "You're hiding something." My heart raced. What do you mean? She studied me, her eyes sharp. You've been different lately, distracted. Like you're carrying a weight you won't share with me. I just want to know what it is. I brushed a strand of hair from her face and forced a smile. I'm just stressed about the draft, about the pressure, that's all. She searched my face for a long moment, then sighed. Promise me, Liam, promise me you won't shut me out. I promise, I whispered, kissing her forehead. But inside, guilt gnawed at me, because even as I said the words, I knew I was breaking that promise. The day the trust was finalized, Robert handed me a thick folder. Congratulations, he said, you're officially untouchable. I flipped through the papers, barely able to believe it. So that's it, it's real? It's real, he said firmly. No matter what happens with the Reeds, no matter what papers they shove in your face, your future is safe. They can't take this from you. I shook his hand, gripping it tight. Thank you, Robert, for everything. He looked me dead in the eye. Don't thank me yet. This was the easy part. The hard part is coming. Because once they realize they can't control you the way they planned, they'll come at you harder. And you'd better be ready. I nodded, my chest tight but steady. I've been ready my whole life. What I didn't know then was that Chloe was fighting her own battle in the shadows. And soon, our secrets would collide in ways that neither of us saw coming. I always thought I was the only one hiding something. Walking around with the trust paperwork burning a hole in my conscience, smiling at Chloe while carrying a secret that could change both our futures. But I didn't realize until later that Chloe was hiding something too, something bigger, something darker. It started with little things. She would leave in the middle of the night, saying she had to meet a friend, but never saying who. She would silence her phone when I walked into the room. I'd catch her staring off into space, her brow furrowed, like she was trying to solve a puzzle no one else could see. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Her parents were relentless. Alexander called her almost every day, demanding updates, demanding obedience. Veronica sent her messages filled with guilt and poison wrapped in polite words. It was enough to drive anyone crazy. One evening, I came by her apartment unannounced. She jumped when I walked in, quickly closing her laptop. Hey, I said carefully, setting my bag down. What's going on? Nothing, she replied too quickly. Chloe, I stepped closer. You've been acting strange. What are you hiding from me? She hesitated, her eyes darting to the closed laptop. For a moment, I thought she might actually tell me, but then she forced a smile. It's just school, papers, projects, you know. I didn't buy it, but I let it slide. I had my own secrets. Who was I to press her? Weeks passed, and her absences grew more frequent. One night, unable to shake the feeling, I followed her. She left her apartment around midnight, heading downtown. I stayed back, watching as she entered a small cafe tucked between two tall office buildings. The place was mostly empty, but I recognized the woman she sat with immediately. Laura Martinez, a reporter I'd seen at a few press conferences. I felt a chill run through me. Why was Chloe meeting with a journalist in the middle of the night? I waited outside, pacing, my stomach in knots. After nearly 2 hours, Chloe finally walked out, clutching a folder tight against her chest. I ducked back, not wanting her to see me. The next day, I confronted her. "Were you with Laura Martinez last night?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Chloe froze. "You followed me?" "I didn't mean to, I had to know. What's going on, Chloe?" She stared at me, torn. Finally, she sighed and sat down, burying her face in her hands. "I didn't want to drag you into this." "Into what?" I pressed. She lifted her head, her eyes blazing with determination I'd never seen before. "I'm investigating my family." I blinked. "What? You think you know how bad they are, Liam? You don't. My father's empire isn't just real estate deals and boardrooms. It's shell companies, hidden accounts, illegal money transfers. My mom helps him cover it up with charity fronts and PR campaigns. It's rotten to the core." I sank into the chair across from her, my head spinning. "And Laura? She's been helping me, quietly. She knows what kind of power my parents have, but she also knows the truth matters. I've been gathering documents, bank records, and emails, enough to bring everything crashing down if it gets out." My heart pounded. "Chloe, this is dangerous if your father finds out." "He won't," she cut me off. "I've been careful." "Careful?" I snapped. "You're going up against Alexander Reed. The man treats billion-dollar deals like poker chips. You think he won't notice his own daughter digging into his files?" Her jaw tightened. "That's exactly why he won't suspect me. He thinks I'm weak. He thinks I'll do whatever he says. He doesn't know me like you do." I stared at her, torn between admiration and fear. This woman, the daughter of the most ruthless man I'd ever met, was risking everything to expose him, and she hadn't told me until now. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked quietly. "Because I didn't want you to have to choose," she whispered. "Between me and your future, between love and survival." I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. "Chloe, you don't get it. You are my future. Whatever happens, we're in this together." Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "Then we fight, together." That night, lying awake beside her, I thought about the weight of our secrets. Me with my trust, her with her investigation. The Reeds thought they were controlling the board, but they had no idea their daughter and the kids from the projects were already plotting against them. And for the first time, I realized we weren't just in love. We were allies in a war. The night I finally stood my ground against the Reeds, I felt like I was walking into an arena. Not the kind with hoops and roaring fans. No scoreboard, no jersey on my back. This was a different kind of court. One where the only things that mattered were power, money, and the ability to keep your voice steady when everyone else wanted to silence you. Chloe and I had agreed to face her parents together. We drove up to the mansion in silence, her fingers gripping mine so tightly my knuckles turned white. She looked out the window, her jaw set, her eyes dark. "You don't have to do this," I said softly as the gate swung open. "Yes, I do," she replied. "If we don't confront them now, they'll keep coming at us from every angle. It has to stop." We stepped inside, and as always, the place felt more like a museum than a home. Marble floors gleaming, chandeliers sparkling, portraits of dead men in expensive frames staring down at us. A butler led us to the sitting room, where Alexander and Veronica were already waiting. Alexander sat in a leather armchair, his hands folded like a king holding court. Veronica perched gracefully on the couch, her posture perfect, her smile sharp. On the coffee table between them lay another folder. I didn't need to open it to know what was inside. "Sit," Alexander said. It wasn't an invitation, it was an order. Chloe squeezed my hand once before we sat down together on the opposite couch. Alexander wasted no time. "Liam, this agreement is non-negotiable. If you wish to marry my daughter, you will sign it." I kept my voice calm. "Respect, sir, I won't." His eyes narrowed. "Excuse me? I said I won't sign it, not this. It's one-sided. It strips me of rights not only to your assets but to my own future earnings. That's not protection, that's exploitation." Veronica tilted her head, her voice smooth as silk. "Oh, Liam, you misunderstand. This is standard. Every wealthy family does this." I met her gaze. "Then every wealthy family is wrong." The room went still. Alexander leaned forward, his jaw tightening. "Do you know who you're speaking to, son?" "Yes," I said firmly. "The man who raised the woman I love. And I'm telling you now, if your approval of this marriage depends on me signing away my life, then maybe you never wanted me here in the first place." Chloe sat up straighter. "Dad, Mom, this has to stop. You can't keep treating Liam like he's some stranger trying to rob you. He loves me. That should be enough. Veronica's smile faltered. Sweetheart, love doesn't last. Contracts do. Chloe's voice rose. Maybe in your marriage, not in mine. Alexander's hand slammed down on the armrest, the sound echoing through the room. Chloe, you will not speak to us this way. And you will not dictate my life, she shot back, her voice shaking with fury. I put my hand on her knee, steadying her, then turned back to Alexander. I grew up with nothing. I know what it means to earn every dollar, to fight for every opportunity. I don't need your money. I don't want your empire. All I want is your daughter, and if you can't see that, then that's on you. For the first time, Alexander's mask slipped. His eyes burned with something close to rage. Veronica touched his arm, trying to calm him, but he shook her off. Do you know what happens to men who defy me? He asked quietly, dangerously. I met his stare without blinking. Maybe it's time someone found out. The silence stretched so long I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. Finally, Alexander leaned back, his lips curling into a thin smile. You're a fool, but at least you're a bold fool. Chloe stood, pulling me up with her. We're done here, she said coldly. Veronica rose gracefully, her smile returning like a mask sliding back into place. Think carefully, Liam. You're young, you're about to enter the NBA. Fame and money make men vulnerable. Without our protection, you'll be eaten alive. I looked her dead in the eye. I'd rather be eaten alive than live my life as your puppet. With that, Chloe and I turned and walked out. The doors closed behind us with a heavy thud, like the sound of a battle line being drawn. In the car, Chloe's hands were still shaking. You didn't have to go that hard, she whispered. Yes, I did, I said. If I gave them an inch, they'd take everything. She looked at me, her eyes softening. I don't know how this ends, Liam, but I do know one thing. I'd rather lose everything with you than gain the world without you. I reached over, brushing a tear from her cheek. Then we'll fight together, no matter what. As we drove away from that mansion, I felt both terrified and alive. I had just declared war on the most powerful family I'd ever known. But I wasn't fighting alone anymore. When you grow up in a world where people take everything from you, you learn to hold on to whatever you can. The Reeds thought I was just a kid chasing their daughter, a hungry athlete blinded by love and money. They thought I was naive. What they did not realize was that Chloe and I had been building something quietly, something that could turn their empire upside down. The first time Chloe showed me the files she had collected, I felt like I was staring into the heart of a monster. We were in her apartment, blinds closed, lights dim. She pulled out a worn leather folder from under her bed and laid it on the table between us. Are you sure you want to see this? She asked, her voice low. I nodded. If we are in this together, I need to know everything. She opened the folder, and inside were stacks of papers, printouts, flash drives. She spread them across the table, her hands trembling. These are company records, transactions that do not add up, wire transfers to offshore accounts. Shell corporations in names that do not exist. My father is laundering money through real estate deals, millions of dollars, and my mother is signing off on charity donations that do not go to charity at all. They funnel the money back into private accounts. I flipped through the pages, my chest tightening. This is enough to bury them. Chloe's eyes filled with both fear and determination. If the FBI got their hands on this, Reed Corporation would collapse. My father would lose everything. I leaned back, running a hand over my face. Why are you showing me this now? She looked at me, her eyes soft. Because after what you did at the mansion, I know you are not afraid of them. And because if we are going to survive this, we need more than just love. We need leverage. For a moment, I sat in silence, the weight of the evidence pressing down on me. This was not just family drama anymore. This was crime, federal crime, and we were sitting in the middle of it. I whispered, if your father finds out you took this, he will destroy you. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Then he better never find out. The next day, I met with Robert. We sat in his office, papers spread across the desk. His eyes scanned the documents, and for the first time since I met him, he looked genuinely shocked. Where the hell did you get this? He asked. Chloe, I said quietly. Robert whistled low. This is dynamite. Enough to trigger an investigation that could ruin them for good. I frowned. Should we give it to the authorities now? He shook his head. Not yet. Timing is everything. If we show our hand too soon, they will bury us in ways you cannot imagine. We need to hold this close. Use it when it matters most. Make it our weapon. My stomach twisted. So we just sit on it? For now, Robert said firmly. Trust me, Liam, the Reeds are going to push harder. When they do, this is the card that flips the game. That night, Chloe and I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. She whispered, do you think we are doing the right thing? I turned to her, brushing her hair back. I think we are doing the only thing. They will never stop trying to control us, but now, for the first time, we have a way to fight back. She rested her head on my chest. Then we fight. The fight came sooner than I expected. A week later, Alexander summoned us again. This time, the mansion felt colder than ever. We walked into his study, the walls lined with books and framed photos of deals closed, hands shaken. He stood by the window, Veronica seated elegantly by the fire. Alexander turned slowly. You have had time to reconsider, Liam. Are you ready to sign the agreement? I looked at Chloe. She gave me the smallest nod. I took a breath and stepped forward. No, I will not sign it, not now, not ever. His face hardened. Then you are finished. You will not marry my daughter, you will not be part of this family. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. His eyes narrowed as I placed it on his desk. What is this? He demanded. Proof, I said calmly. Proof of what you have been doing, the shell companies, the money transfers, the fake charities, I know it all, and so will the authorities if you keep pushing me. Veronica's mask slipped for the first time. Her face went pale, her lips parting in shock. Alexander's eyes burned into me, cold fury radiating from him. You do not know what you are playing with, he growled. On the contrary, I replied, keeping my voice steady. I know exactly what I am playing with, and I am done being your pawn. For a long moment, no one moved. The fire crackled in the silence. Then Chloe spoke, her voice firm. We are not afraid of you anymore. Alexander's jaw clenched, his knuckles white on the edge of the desk. Finally, he spoke through gritted teeth. Get out. We left without another word. My heart pounded, adrenaline surging through me. We had shown our hand, at least part of it. The war was no longer hidden. It was out in the open now. In the car, Chloe turned to me, her voice trembling. Do you think he will back down? I stared out the window, the city lights blurring past. No, he is not the type to back down, but he knows now. He knows we are not powerless, and that changes everything. I knew the moment Chloe and I walked out of that mansion with their secrets hanging in the air that we had crossed a line that could never be erased. There are fights you walk into, and then there are wars you stumble into because you refuse to bow your head. This was the latter, and the Reeds did not waste time firing back. It started with whispers. One morning, I woke up to a flood of messages on my phone. Teammates, coaches, even reporters had texted me. Articles were already circulating online. Headlines like Rising Star Walker linked to questionable influences and concerns over Walker's character ahead of draft. Some reporter I had never spoken to claimed I was reckless with money, partying too hard, surrounded by shady people from my past. None of it was true, but the seed was planted. I stormed into Robert's office, slamming my phone on his desk. Look at this. They are trying to kill me before I even step into the NBA. Robert scrolled through the articles, his jaw tightening. Classic smear campaign. They leak just enough to make you look unstable. Scouts read it, owners hesitate, suddenly your draft stock slips. This is the Reeds' way of reminding you who controls the narrative. My chest burned with anger. So what do? Sit back and let them drag my name through the mud? Robert leaned forward. No, we hit back smart. Not loud, not yet. You stay clean, you stay focused on your game. The more they try to paint you as reckless, the more you prove them wrong on the court. And meanwhile, we keep building our case against them. It was good advice, but it didn't make the sting any less sharp. Walking into practice that day, I could feel the eyes on me. Teammates whispering, coaches giving me longer stares than usual. Even the media at the post-game presser asked pointed questions. Liam, do you think your background makes it harder for you to stay focused in a world of fame and money? I clenched my fists under the table. My background made me who I am. It taught me discipline, resilience, and loyalty. Those qualities will never change, no matter how many headlines you print. The cameras flashed, and I walked out without looking back. At night, though, the pressure ate at me. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many owners were crossing my name off their draft boards because of lies planted by the Reeds. Chloe noticed, of course. One night, she sat up in bed, her voice gentle. They are trying to break you, Liam. That is all this is. They think if they make you desperate enough, you will cave and sign their contract. I sighed, rubbing my face. And if the NBA believes them, what if I lose everything before I even get started? She cupped my face in her hands. Then we build again, together. You are not alone in this anymore. Her words gave me strength, but the attacks did not stop. A week later, I got served with legal documents. The Reeds were suing me for defamation, claiming I had threatened to expose false information about their business. I slammed the papers down on Robert's desk. They are suing me now. Can they even do that? Robert skimmed the pages, shaking his head. This is intimidation. They know it will not hold up in court, but the process itself is the punishment. It forces you to waste time and money defending yourself. It keeps you tied up while they keep moving. My fists clenched. So what, I just fight lawsuits for the rest of my life? Robert leaned back, his expression calm but his eyes sharp. No, we turn it back on them. We use discovery. Once this goes to court, they will have to open their books. And trust me, they do not want that. I felt a spark of hope. So this could actually work in our favor? He nodded. If we play it right, yes, but it will not be easy. They will drag it out, bleed you dry if they can. You have to be ready for the long game. I thought about Mom, about Marcus, about Chloe. I thought about the trust Robert had set up, about the evidence Chloe had collected. And I realized I could not back down now, not when everything was on the line. The Reeds escalated again, this time through intimidation. One night after practice, as I walked to my car, a black SUV pulled up beside me. The window rolled down and a man I had never seen before leaned out. You are making dangerous choices, Walker, he said quietly. People who go against the Reeds don't last long. Think about your mother, think about your brother. It would be a shame if something happened to them. My blood ran cold. Are you threatening my family? The man smirked. I am reminding you, choices have consequences. Then the SUV drove off, leaving me standing in the dark, fists clenched, heart pounding. I called Robert immediately, my voice shaking with rage. They went after my family. They sent someone to threaten them. Robert's voice was steady. Listen to me, do not do anything rash. That is what they want. They want you scared, reckless, making mistakes. We will document this, build it into the case. The more they push, the more rope they give us to hang them with. I hung up and drove straight to my mom's apartment. When she opened the door and saw my face, she knew something was wrong. Baby, what happened? She asked. I hugged her tight, holding Marcus too, promising them both that I would never let anyone touch them. But inside, fear twisted in my gut, because now it wasn't just about me and Chloe. The Reeds had brought my family into it, and that meant this war had just gotten personal. Later that night, sitting with Chloe, I told her about the SUV. Her face went pale, then hardened. That is it, I am done being quiet. They think they can bully you, bully me, bully everyone, but they cannot bully the truth. I looked at her, realizing she was ready to go further than ever before. What are you saying? I am saying we do not just hold the evidence anymore, we use it. We leak just enough to let the world know what kind of people they are. Once the spotlight is on them, they cannot just erase us. Her words burned into me. She was right. We had been playing defense, reacting to their every move. Maybe it was time to take the ball and drive. As I held her that night, I knew the war was only beginning. The Reeds had power, money, influence. But Chloe and I had something stronger. We had the truth. And once the truth came out, not even Alexander Reed could stop the fall. When you grow up where I did, you get used to the idea that powerful people can do whatever they want and nobody ever stops them. Cops look the other way, landlords squeeze every penny, people with money get away with things the rest of us could not even dream of trying. So when Chloe and I made the decision to take the first real shot at her father's empire, I knew it would be dangerous. What I did not know was just how much the world would shift once the truth started leaking out. The night we sat with Laura Martinez in that tiny office above the bookstore felt like the moment everything changed. The room was hot, the air heavy with dust, and the faint smell of ink from the print shop downstairs. Chloe spread the papers out on the table one by one, her movements slow and deliberate, like she was laying down cards in a high-stakes game. Laura leaned over them, her eyes sharp. This is more than I expected. Offshore transfers, dummy corporations, even falsified charity reports. If half of this is real, it could open the door to federal charges. Chloe's voice was steady. It is all real. I copied everything myself. Bank statements, contracts, internal memos. My father thinks his secrets are buried in vaults, but he underestimates me. He always has. I watched her with a mix of pride and fear. She looked fierce, stronger than I had ever seen her, but I also knew what kind of danger she was inviting onto herself. Laura pushed her glasses up and looked at us. If I publish this, even just part of it, the story will spread everywhere. But once it is out there, you cannot take it back. Alexander Reed will know that someone inside his circle betrayed him, and given the detail in these documents, he will know it was you. Chloe lifted her chin. Let him know. I am done being his pawn. Laura turned to me. And you, Liam, you realize what this could mean for you too. The NBA does not like controversy. Teams do not like distractions. If your name gets tied to this, it could hurt your career before it even starts. I swallowed, feeling the weight of it. My whole life I had dreamed of that draft day, of hearing my name called, of stepping into an arena wearing an NBA jersey. But looking at Chloe, I knew what mattered more. I would rather risk my career than live in fear of her family for the rest of my life, I said. Publish it. Laura nodded slowly. All right, I will release an initial piece, not everything, just enough to crack the surface. Once the public starts asking questions, more pressure will follow, and that will force the regulators to look deeper. That night, none of us slept much. Chloe curled up next to me in bed, her head on my chest, her breathing uneven. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the city outside, waiting for the storm we had just unleashed. The article dropped the next morning. The headline was careful but explosive. Anonymous sources raise questions about Reed Corporation's financial practices. It outlined suspicious wire transfers to overseas accounts, discrepancies in charity donations, and evidence of shell companies with no legitimate operations. It did not name Chloe, it did not mention me, but it cast a shadow over her family's empire. The reaction was immediate. Within hours, news outlets picked up the story. Cable news anchors debated it, business analysts speculated on air. If these allegations are true, Reed Corporation could face significant regulatory scrutiny, one analyst said. It is too soon to say whether this will escalate into a federal investigation, but the questions being raised are serious. By midday, the company's stock price had dipped for the first time in years. Investors began calling for an emergency board meeting. Outside the Reed headquarters, cameras and reporters gathered, shouting questions at every executive who tried to walk through the doors. I was at practice when the storm hit full force. My phone buzzed nonstop in my locker, notifications flooding in. Teammates glanced at me, whispering. Coach pulled me aside after drills. "Walker," he said, his voice low. "What the hell is going on? Reporters are calling the athletic department nonstop. Something about your girlfriend's family." I forced myself to stay calm. "Coach, this has nothing to do with me. I am focused on basketball, that is all." He studied me for a long moment, his eyes narrowing. Then he sighed. "You better be, because if this turns into a circus, you need to be ready for the spotlight to swing straight onto you." After practice, walking out of the gym, I was met by a wall of cameras. Reporters shouted questions over one another. "Liam, do you know anything about the Reed investigation? Are you still engaged to Chloe Reed? Do you believe these allegations will affect your draft stock?" I kept my head down, pushing through them, but inside my chest my heart was racing. The Reeds wanted me buried under suspicion, but for once, it was their name that was being dragged through the mud. That night, Chloe and I sat together in her apartment, watching the news. Anchor after anchor repeated the story. A panel of commentators argued on screen. "This could be the start of a major scandal," one of them said. "The Reeds have been untouchable for decades, but if regulators take this seriously, it could change everything." Chloe squeezed my hand, her eyes wet but burning with resolve. "It is working, Liam. For the first time, they are on defense." I kissed her forehead. "This is just the beginning. We are not finished yet." But the victory was not without cost. 2 days later, Chloe's phone rang. The name on the screen made her stomach twist, Alexander. She put it on speaker, her hand trembling slightly. "Chloe," his voice came through, calm but cold. "Come home now." "I am not coming home," she said firmly. "You think you are clever," he replied. "You think leaking lies to the press will hurt me, but you do not understand the game you're playing. You are my daughter, and I will not let you destroy what I built." Chloe's voice did not waver. "I am not destroying it, Father. You are. I am just showing the world who you really are." For the first time, his composure cracked. His voice rose, sharp with fury. "You will regret this." Then the line went dead. Chloe sat there, staring at the phone, her knuckles white. I pulled her into my arms, whispering, "He is rattled. That means we hit him where it hurts." She buried her face against me, whispering, "I never wanted it to come to this, but maybe it had to." The next day, federal regulators announced they were reviewing recent reports concerning Reed Corporation. It was not a full investigation yet, but it was enough to send shockwaves through the business world. Investors panicked, the stock dropped further, and board members began whispering behind closed doors. Robert called me that evening, his voice brimming with satisfaction. "You feel that, Liam? That is the tide turning. The Reeds are not untouchable anymore. They are bleeding. And once they start bleeding, the sharks come out." I looked at Chloe sitting across from me, her face tired but determined. "We did this together," I said. Robert chuckled darkly. "Then together, you just put the first crack in an empire that thought it was made of stone." For years, Alexander Reed had pulled strings, manipulating everything and everyone around him. But now the strings were fraying. For the first time, the world was beginning to see what Chloe and I had seen all along. And once the truth started leaking out, there was no stopping the flood. The day Alexander Reed called me back into his office was the first time I realized he could bleed. Not just his company, not just his reputation, but him. The man who once looked untouchable now sounded cornered. His assistant called my phone first, her voice clipped and formal, telling me that Mr. Reed requested a meeting at his earliest convenience. I laughed bitterly when I hung up. Requested. A month earlier, it would have been a command. When I told Chloe, she smirked. He is desperate. He would never admit it, but this is his way of crawling back. I stared at her. Then why do I feel like walking into that house again is a trap? Because it always is, she admitted. But this time, we go in with power. He knows you hold the cards now. We arrived together. The mansion looked the same as ever, shining marble floors, walls lined with art worth more than my entire childhood block. But the energy was different. The staff moved quickly, quietly. The usual air of superiority had shifted into something that smelled like fear. Alexander was waiting in his study. He stood when we entered, something he had never done before. His suit was perfect, his hair slicked back, but there were dark circles under his eyes. Veronica was there too, perched on the edge of a chair, her hands folded tightly, her smile forced. "Sit," Alexander said. This time, it almost sounded like a plea. Chloe crossed her arms. "Say what you have to say, Dad." He cleared his throat, glancing at me before fixing his gaze on his daughter. "The article has caused difficulties. Investors are nervous. Regulators are asking questions. I need this to stop." "Then stop breaking the law," Chloe shot back. His jaw clenched, but he ignored her. He turned to me instead. "Liam, you are about to sign an NBA contract worth millions. You will be a public figure. You do not want to be dragged into this mess any more than I do, so here is what I propose." He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a folder. He slid it across the table toward me. I opened it cautiously, expecting another trap, but what I saw made me pause. The prenup had been rewritten. No longer one-sided. No longer a noose around my neck. It was fair. It outlined that Chloe and I would each keep what we brought into the marriage, that any future earnings would be protected individually unless voluntarily shared. It even had clauses about joint assets we might build together, giving us equal say and rights. I looked up slowly. "This is different." Alexander exhaled through his nose, his voice low. "It is reasonable. It is what you should have been offered from the start, but I need you to sign it quickly before more damage is done. If you marry my daughter with this in place, it will stabilize the family's image. It will prove to the world that we are united." I almost laughed. "So now you need me." His face hardened, but he did not deny it. Chloe leaned forward, her eyes blazing. "You think this makes up for everything? For trying to control us, for threatening Liam, for smearing him in the press?" "Chloe," Veronica interrupted smoothly, her voice soft. "This is about protecting the family. We all make mistakes. Perhaps we can start fresh." I looked at her, remembering every cutting word, every cold smile. "You don't get to play the peacemaker now. You both tried to bury me. You failed. And the only reason I am sitting here listening is because of Chloe." Alexander's fists tightened on the armrests. "Do not mistake this for weakness. I am offering you a fair deal. Take it or watch this family burn." I stood, the folder in my hand. "Then maybe it is time the world watched." Chloe rose beside me. "We are not signing anything unless it is on our terms. Equal terms, not because you want to save face, but because that is the only way forward." For a moment, I thought Alexander would explode. His face turned red, his mouth opened, but then he froze. He looked at me, then at his daughter, and something shifted in his eyes. Maybe it was fear of losing everything. Maybe it was finally realizing he could not control her anymore. His voice cracked, quieter than I had ever heard it. "What do you want?" The words hung heavy in the air. Chloe and I exchanged a look. This was the moment. I spoke carefully. "We want a contract that treats us as equals. No hidden traps, no loopholes, no attempts to claw at what is mine or hers. And we want you to back off. No more threats. No more smear campaigns. If you want to save your empire, you sign a contract that proves you respect us." Veronica inhaled sharply. That would mean admitting we were wrong. Chloe's eyes never left her father's. "Then admit it." The silence stretched. Then, slowly, Alexander nodded. "Fine." I did not trust him, not fully, but I knew this was the closest thing to victory we had seen yet. When we left that mansion, Chloe exhaled deeply, her shoulders sagging. "Did that just happen?" "Yeah," I said, still processing. "It did." She leaned against me as we walked to the car. "We just forced my father to beg. Do you know how impossible that is?" I squeezed her hand. Impossible is kind of our thing. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and thought about how far we had come. From a kid dribbling a worn ball on a cracked court to a man standing up to one of the most powerful families in the country. And for the first time, I believed we might actually win. The day of the wedding felt unreal from the moment I opened my eyes. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my chest rising and falling too fast, the weight of everything pressing down on me. This was not just a wedding. It was a statement to the world. A declaration that Chloe and I had survived everything her family threw at us, and we were still standing side by side. The morning was quiet. My mom was in the kitchen humming to herself as she ironed the suit she had bought secondhand but made look brand new. Marcus paced the living room like he was about to play in the finals. He kept adjusting his tie and grinning at me like he could not believe this was real. "You are really doing this," he said, shaking his head. "Liam Walker, the kid from South Side Projects, marrying into the Reed family." I laughed, but there was no arrogance in it, only disbelief. "I am marrying Chloe. That is all I care about." Mom walked in holding the suit jacket. "You look handsome already, but this will make you look like a man ready to start a new life. I am proud of you, baby." Her voice cracked on the last words, and I hugged her tight, inhaling the scent of her perfume mixed with the faint smell of laundry soap. By noon, the car arrived to take us to the venue. Not the Reed mansion, not some cold boardroom disguised as a ballroom. Chloe had insisted on a place that felt real, a restored old church in the heart of the city, its stained glass glowing in the sunlight. Outside, crowds gathered, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions, but for once their noise felt far away. Inside, the church was filled with people from both of our worlds. Teammates and coaches, old neighbors from Chicago, professors from college, journalists, investors, business partners, even members of the Reed board who wanted to be seen supporting the union. The mix was strange, a collision of lives that would never normally cross paths. As I stood at the altar waiting, time slowed. My palms were damp, my chest tight. The music began, soft strings filling the air. Everyone rose, turning toward the doors. And then I saw her. Chloe stepped into the church, her dress simple yet elegant, her hair flowing over her shoulders. For a moment, the light through the stained glass fell perfectly across her face, and she looked like something out of a dream. My heart pounded as she walked toward me, every step steady, her eyes locked on mine. When she reached me, I whispered, "You look like the future." She smiled, whispering back, "You are my future." The ceremony began, the words of the officiant echoing in the church. I barely heard them, too focused on Chloe, on the way her hands trembled in mine, on the tears gathering in her eyes. When it was time for vows, I spoke from my heart. "Chloe, when I met you, I thought you belonged to a world I would never understand. But you showed me that love does not care about money or power. You stood by me when everyone else tried to pull us apart. I promised to spend every day proving that your choice was worth it. I promised to be your partner, your equal, your best friend. Together, we will build something no one can take away." Chloe's voice was steady as she replied. "Liam, from the moment I met you, I saw the strength in your eyes, the honesty in your heart. You did not see me as a pawn in my father's empire. You saw me as myself. You gave me the courage to stand up against everything I feared. I promised to stand with you through every fight, through every storm. We are not just in love, we are allies, and nothing will ever break that." The officiant asked for the rings. Marcus stepped forward proudly, handing them over. I slid the ring onto Chloe's finger, my hands shaking. She slid mine onto my hand, her touch grounding me. "You may kiss the bride," the officiant said. I kissed her, and the church erupted in applause. Cameras flashed, voices cheered, but in that moment all I felt was Chloe in my arms, the taste of salt from her tears, the heat of her lips on mine. When we turned to face the crowd, I saw my mom wiping her eyes, Marcus cheering loudly, Coach Carter clapping with pride. And in the back, I saw Alexander and Veronica Reed. Their faces were unreadable, but they were there, forced to witness the marriage they had tried so hard to stop. For once, they were not in control. At the reception afterward, people crowded around us. Teammates slapped my back, investors shook my hand, reporters shouted questions, but Chloe and I stayed close, never letting go of each other's hands. At one point, Mom pulled me aside. Her eyes were wet, but her smile was radiant. "You did it, Liam. You did more than escape the life we were trapped in. You changed the rules. You wrote your own story." I hugged her tight. "I could not have done it without you, Mom. You are the reason I am standing here." Later that night, after the music had faded and the guests had left, Chloe and I sat together in the empty church, still in our wedding clothes. The candles flickered, the stained glass glowed faintly in the moonlight. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Do you realize what we just did?" I laughed softly. "We just got married." "No," she whispered. "We just proved that love can beat fear. That power is nothing without integrity, that we are stronger together than they will ever be apart." I kissed her hair, my chest swelling with pride and relief. "Then let the world watch, because this is just the beginning." Marriage had not made Chloe and me different people, but it changed how the world saw us. I was no longer just a kid with a ball and a dream. She was no longer just the daughter of Alexander Reed. Together, we became something larger, something people wanted to watch, to analyze, to celebrate, and sometimes to tear apart. They called us a power couple, and while at first that phrase felt strange on my tongue, I began to understand what it really meant. Power did not come from money alone. It came from choice, from deciding to use what we had for something bigger than ourselves. The days after our wedding were a blur of public attention. Invitations to galas, appearances at charity events, requests for interviews came flooding in. My agent kept calling, warning me not to stretch myself too thin before the draft, but I could not ignore the wave rising around us. The public wanted to see us, to hear us, to know what kind of people we really were. And each time a camera was pointed at us, Chloe and I knew it was a chance to rewrite the story. At one particularly packed interview, a reporter leaned forward with a grin that told me he was hoping for something sensational. Liam, you grew up in a housing project with no money, no connections. Chloe, you grew up in one of the richest families in the country. Do you really think love can bridge those kinds of differences? Chloe squeezed my hand before speaking. Love is not about where you start. It is about where you are willing to go together. Liam and I do not ignore our differences. We respect them, and we use them to learn from each other. I added, when I look at Chloe, I do not see a dollar sign. I see someone who stood up to the people who controlled her entire life just to stand next to me. That kind of courage is worth more than any fortune. The audience applauded, and later that night, as Chloe and I sat in the car heading home, she leaned against me, whispering, "Every time we speak the truth out loud, I feel like we steal another piece of his power." She was right. For so long, her father had controlled the narrative, using lawyers and headlines to shape the world in his favor. Now Chloe and I were shaping it ourselves, not with lies, not with manipulation, but with honesty. It was during one of those quiet nights on our balcony that the idea for the foundation was born. The city lights stretched before us, cars buzzing far below, the hum of life constant and restless. Chloe turned to me, her face lit softly by the glow of the street lamps. "We cannot just keep surviving, Liam," she said. "We have to build. We have to give back. Otherwise, we are no better than the empire my parents tried to trap us in." I frowned thoughtfully. "What do you mean?" She leaned closer. "Think about the kids like Marcus, kids like you when you were young. Raw talent, big dreams, but no one to help them. What if we created something that gave them a real chance? Scholarships, training programs, mentorships. A place where they do not just get told they are valuable but are shown they are." Her words hit me hard. I thought of my brother, of the nights he spent waiting outside gyms that would not let him in. I thought of myself at 13, playing on a cracked court with shoes that had holes in the soles. I thought of how one coach had changed my life just by believing in me. "You are right," I whispered. "If we are going to carry this name, if we are going to stand in the light, we better use it for something more than ourselves." So we began. With Robert's legal knowledge and Chloe's connections, the structure took shape quickly. We called it the Walker Reed Foundation, a deliberate merging of our names. Not the Reed empire of secrecy and control, not the Walker name of survival and struggle, but something new, something balanced. The launch was small at first, a press conference in a community gym that still smelled of sweat and determination. I stood at the podium, my voice steady. I grew up in a neighborhood where kids had dreams bigger than the court they played on but no way to make them real. This foundation is for them. For the ones who need to know they matter, who need a door opened, who need a chance. Chloe stepped up beside me. I grew up surrounded by wealth, but I also grew up surrounded by fear and control. Money means nothing without love and integrity. This foundation will be built on both. We are here to make sure the next generation does not have to choose between survival and dignity. The applause was real, not the polite kind you hear at staged events. Parents cried. Kids clapped and cheered. Reporters leaned forward, eager to capture every word. That night the story spread across networks and news sites. Not a scandal, not a smear. Hope. From there, the foundation grew fast. We partnered with schools, offered scholarships, set up sports programs in neighborhoods where kids usually played with flat balls on cracked pavement. I shook hands with boys who reminded me of myself at 15. Chloe sat with girls who told her they wanted to be lawyers, writers, doctors, but had no one to guide them. One day, after a long event at a school gym, a little boy tugged on my sleeve. His shoes were torn, his shirt 2 sizes too small, but his eyes burned with determination. "Mr. Walker," he said, "do you think I can make it like you did?" I knelt down to his level, my chest tight. "You can make it further, and we are going to help you get there." Moments like that made everything worth it. Every sleepless night, every battle with the Reeds, every headline. For the first time, I felt like I was living the life I was meant to live, but not everyone celebrated us. One evening, my phone rang. I answered, and Alexander's voice came through, sharp as a blade. Do you really think a foundation will make you legitimate? You are children playing dress-up, pretending you can build what I spent decades creating. I clenched my jaw. The difference is we are building it clean. We are not hiding behind lies or fake numbers. We are giving back. That is something you never did. He was silent for a moment, then his tone dropped lower, colder. You will regret crossing me, Liam. Empires do not fall this easily. I hung up before he could say more. When I looked up, Chloe was watching me from across the room, her eyes full of understanding. It was him, wasn't it? She asked. Yeah, I admitted. He is furious. She walked over, wrapping her arms around me. Let him be. His fury is just another sign that he is losing. He cannot touch us anymore, not when the world is seeing who we really are. And she was right. The more he tried to push back, the weaker he looked. Every whisper campaign he launched against us failed. Every attempt to smear our names only highlighted the contrast between his corruption and our transparency. The Walker Reed Foundation continued to rise. We held banquets where athletes, business leaders, and community organizers came together to support the mission. Teammates donated portions of their salaries. Investors lined up to be part of something that felt new and hopeful. Even skeptical journalists wrote pieces admitting they had misjudged us. And slowly, the story of the Reeds began to fade. The lawsuits piled up against Alexander, the investigations deepened, and the empire he built with fear and manipulation began to crumble. Meanwhile, the foundation stood tall, gathering strength with every passing month. One night, after a long gala where we raised more money than I had ever imagined possible, Chloe and I returned home exhausted. She slipped off her heels, collapsing on the couch, laughing softly. Do you realize what we are doing, Liam? She asked. I sat beside her, pulling her close. What? We are rewriting what the Reed name means. My father thought it stood for fear. My mother thought it stood for control. But we are making it mean love, community, integrity. I kissed her hair. And the Walker name, once it stood for survival, now it stands for hope. Together, those names are something new. We sat there in silence for a long time, the city humming outside the window. And I realized she was right. We were not just living a love story. We were writing a new empire. Not of wealth and power for its own sake, but of influence used to lift others up. Still, deep down, I knew Alexander Reed was not finished. Men like him never surrender quietly. A final confrontation was coming. And when it did, Chloe and I would need to stand stronger than ever. The empire of Alexander Reed was crumbling piece by piece. Federal regulators dug deeper into his companies. Investors who once bowed to him now avoided his calls. Journalists began writing not about his deals, but about his scandals. For the first time in decades, the man who built his life on intimidation and control looked vulnerable. But men like him do not collapse quietly. They fight until the very end. The final confrontation began with an invitation, a white envelope delivered to our office, addressed to Chloe in her father's careful handwriting. Inside was a simple card. Dinner, one last conversation, my study, tonight. Chloe showed it to me, her hands trembling slightly. It feels like a trap. I nodded. Of course it is, but if we do not go, he will spin it as weakness. He will say we ran from him. She stared at the card, then at me. Then we go together. That evening, we drove through the city in silence, the glow of streetlights flickering across Chloe's face. She looked calm, but I could feel the tension in her body, her hand gripping mine tightly. The Reed mansion loomed ahead, the same towering building that had once filled me with dread. Now, though, it looked smaller. Still grand, still intimidating, but not invincible. Not anymore. Inside, the air smelled of old leather and cigar smoke. We were led straight to Alexander's study. He was waiting behind his massive oak desk, Veronica seated beside him, her face pale but composed. For once, there were no lawyers, no assistants, no guards, just them and us. Alexander gestured to the chairs across from him. Sit. We sat, our hands still linked. He studied us for a long moment before speaking. His voice was softer than I expected. You think you have won, you think your little foundation and your carefully crafted image can erase me, but you have no idea what I built. I shaped this city. I made people rich. I made kings out of beggars. You are children pretending to understand power. Chloe's voice cut through the heavy air. No, father, you did not build power, you built fear, and fear only lasts until people stop being afraid. His eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. You have turned my own daughter against me. You have taken my name and twisted it. I leaned forward, my voice steady. You twisted it yourself. We are the ones fixing it. We are using it to build something real, something that helps instead of destroys. Veronica spoke then, her voice trembling slightly. Chloe, Liam, please, do you really think you can survive this world by playing saints? Sooner or later, you will face the same temptations, the same compromises. Money corrupts everyone. Chloe turned to her mother, her eyes filled with both sadness and resolve. Then watch us prove you wrong. Alexander slammed his hand on the desk, the sound echoing through the room. You are fools. Do you think the regulators will protect you? Do you think the press will stay on your side? They will turn on you the moment it benefits them, and when they do, you will crawl back, begging for my protection. I met his glare without flinching. No, we will never crawl back, because unlike you, we are not alone. Have each other. We have people who believe in us. That is power you will never understand. For the first time, Alexander looked uncertain. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The silence stretched heavy. Chloe leaned forward, her voice steady but full of fire. You can threaten us all you want. You can smear us, sue us, even try to scare us with men in black cars. But here is the truth, Father. The world is watching now, and the world has seen who you really are. You cannot hide anymore. You cannot control me anymore. His face twisted with rage, but behind it I saw something else. Fear, real fear. Veronica stood suddenly, her composure cracking. Alexander, stop. You cannot win this fight, not this time. He turned on her, his voice sharp. Be quiet. But she shook her head. No, I have stood by you for decades, covering your lies, playing the perfect wife. But look around you. We are finished, and it is because of you. The room went still. For the first time, Veronica had broken ranks. Alexander stared at her, stunned, as if the ground beneath him had shifted. I rose slowly, pulling Chloe up with me. This is over. Whether you accept it or not, the empire you built is collapsing. The only choice you have left is whether you go down fighting or step aside with what little dignity remains. Chloe's eyes locked on her father's. And if you ever try to hurt Liam again, or me, or anyone we love, I swear I will not stop until the world sees every secret you have ever tried to bury. Alexander's face went pale. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. We turned and walked out, the heavy doors closing behind us. For the first time, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. Not gone completely, but lighter. Because we had faced him and we had not broken. Outside, the night air was cool, the stars sharp against the dark sky. Chloe leaned against me, her body shaking with the release of everything she had held in. Do you think it is really over? She whispered. I kissed her forehead. It is over for him. For us, it is just the beginning. And as we drove away from the mansion, leaving its cold walls behind, I realized that the last confrontation was not really about contracts or money or power. It was about choice. Alexander had chosen control, fear, and corruption. Chloe and I had chosen love, integrity, and hope, and that choice would always win in the end. The months after the last confrontation felt like stepping into a new world. The Reeds were no longer the giants who had loomed over every choice Chloe and I made. Investigations continued, lawsuits piled up, and slowly the empire Alexander built began to fold under its own corruption. He still tried to fight, still tried to roar, but his voice no longer carried the same fear it once did. The world had moved on, and for the first time, Chloe and I felt free. Freedom, though, came with responsibility. We had built the Walker Reed Foundation as a promise, not as a publicity stunt, and now it was growing faster than we ever imagined. Schools reached out from across the country asking for programs. Parents called, desperate for scholarships for their kids. Athletes wrote letters, wanting to volunteer. What started as an idea whispered on a balcony had become a movement. I remember one evening sitting in the gym we had renovated on the south side of Chicago, the same kind of place where I grew up. The floor gleamed under the lights, the hoops stood tall and new, and the bleachers were packed with kids cheering as they played their first real tournament. Chloe sat beside me, smiling as a girl no older than 12 sank a three-pointer and celebrated like she had just won the championship. Do you see this? Chloe whispered, her eyes shining. This is what it means to build something real. I nodded, my throat tight. This is worth every fight. We began traveling across the country, visiting schools, shaking hands with kids, telling our story. Reporters followed, but this time the cameras felt different. They were not hunting scandal or chasing conflict. They were capturing hope. At one event, a teenage boy approached me nervously. His hands shook as he held out a worn notebook. Mr. Walker, he said quietly, I want to be like you, but my family says it is impossible. We do not have money, we do not have connections. They tell me to stop dreaming. I took the notebook, flipping through the pages filled with plays he had drawn, practice drills he had written for himself. I looked him in the eye. Listen to me, do not ever stop dreaming. I grew up hearing the same things. People told me I would never make it, but I worked, I fought, and I believed. And now I am here telling you that it is possible. If you want it, keep going, and we will help you get there. The boy's eyes filled with tears as he hugged me tight. That moment stayed with me long after the event ended. Back home, Chloe and I worked late into the nights planning new programs, meeting with partners, expanding the foundation. Sometimes we disagreed, sometimes we argued, but we always came back to the same promise: to build something better, to use our platform not just to shine but to lift others up. One night, as we sat surrounded by stacks of papers and blueprints for a new community center, Chloe put down her pen and looked at me. "Do you realize what we have done?" she asked softly. I smiled. "What?" "We have turned pain into power. We have turned betrayal into purpose. We have taken everything my family tried to use against us and made it into something beautiful." I leaned back, staring at her with awe. "And we are just getting started." She leaned across the table, kissing me gently. "I love you, Liam Walker, not because of what you have achieved, not because of what you will achieve, but because of who you are." I kissed her back. "And I love you, Chloe Reed, because you showed me that love is stronger than fear." As time passed, people began to speak of us not as the couple who defied the Reeds, but as leaders in our own right. Athletes, business leaders, and community organizers came to us for guidance. Young people sent letters thanking us for scholarships, for programs, for believing in them. Slowly, the Walker Reed Foundation became more than a project. It became a legacy. One day, standing on the stage at a packed auditorium, I looked out at hundreds of kids, parents, and teachers. Cameras flashed, but I was not nervous. I was proud. I spoke from my heart. When I was your age, I had nothing. No money, no safety net, no guarantees, but I had a dream, and I had people who believed in me. Now, Chloe and I stand here because we want to be those people for you. We want you to know that your dreams matter, that your lives matter, and that no one has the right to tell you otherwise. Do not let fear control you. Do not let anyone convince you that you are less. You have the power to write your own story. The applause shook the room. Kids stood, clapping, some crying, some cheering. Chloe joined me on stage, taking my hand, her face radiant. Together we looked out at them, and I felt a sense of peace I had never known. Later that night, sitting quietly with her, I thought about everything we had endured. The threats, the betrayals, the battles in boardrooms and courtrooms. I thought about the fear in Alexander's eyes the last time we saw him, and the hope in the eyes of the boy who gave me his notebook. And I realized something simple. This was never just about us. It was about proving that love, integrity, and courage could stand against corruption and greed. It was about showing that the next generation does not have to repeat the mistakes of the past. Chloe squeezed my hand, her voice soft. "What do you think our legacy will be?" I smiled, kissing her forehead. "Our legacy will not be measured in dollars or headlines. It will be measured in every kid who dared to dream because we told them they could. It will be measured in every life that changes because we chose hope instead of fear." And as I looked out at the city skyline, lights glowing against the night, I felt it deep in my bones. We were more than survivors. We were builders. We were leaders. We were proof that even in a world ruled by power and money, love could still win. That is the legacy Chloe and I promised to leave. A legacy of courage. A legacy of truth. A legacy that tells the world that no matter where you come from, no matter what stands against you, you can rise, you can fight, you can change everything.